Welcome to a new episode of Long Term. I'm your host, Ty King, and this week's kind of a very special episode because this is going to be part of what's called Podcast-thon. If you don't know what that is, Podcast-thon is sort of a global nonprofit organization that calls in for podcasters that are across the globe to dedicate one episode of their podcast towards promoting a nonprofit organization, which us, of course, being so tied in with nonprofit organizations, whether they are organizations that help recovery people or if they are sponsors and they kind of tick both of those boxes like Exodus.Life. And so that's what we're going to talk about in this episode is Exodus.Life. I had the time and the chance to sit down with Myra Woolfolk, who's the director of Exodus.Life, and it's kind of a rare occurrence. Myra is not one of those people that loves to sit in front of the camera and loves any of the attention. She loves to do the work, and I think it's about time that we give her some praise and credit for what she's doing, and so I really wanted to shine a light on the wonderful work that she and the organization are doing, and let's get right into that interview with Myra. I'm sitting here with Myra Woolfolk, who is the executive director of Exodus.Life, which is the organization, of course, that makes this podcast possible. Myra, how are you?
I'm doing well, Ty. How about yourself?
I'm good. I'm good. You've
Okay.
been speaking in front of people on stage today and doing quite a bit of public
Yeah,
speaking.
I
Yeah.
just finished a presentation at the National Association of Social Works conference here in
Nice.
Little Rock.
Nice. Okay. Awesome.
Mhm.
Is that one of your passions, is social work? And does it tie into what we do here at
Of
Exodus?
course,
Yeah.
of course. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. you're like, these are yes or no questions, right? Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. That's what you're like. Yeah.
I'll form a complete sentence in a minute.
Okay, yeah, that sounds good. Now it takes a while to get comfortable. I know you don't normally get in front of the camera, so I do appreciate you doing this. We've had a lot of the staff from Exodus come on and give their testimonials, to answer questions. You know what I mean about what it's like to deal with people who are going through substance abuse, issues and recovery. Where does Exodus play a role in that? And so I just wanted to talk to you as the director. You get to see from the, you're both your feet are both on the ground, boots on the ground, but
Hmm.
you also have the bird's eye view of what's going on in the organization and overall what's going on in recovery across Arkansas, of course, in
Right.
the area, right?
Yeah.
So I just wanted to, I guess, start with how did you? I know that you didn't start in the position of executive director for Exodus. So how did Myra Woolfolk find herself being in Exodus.Life?
Okay. So it's a pretty long journey,
Yeah.
but in my formal life, I worked for Arkansas Community Corrections. And Exodus, which at that time was Under Grace Ministries, they provided services inside of the correctional facilities where I was responsible for overseeing the treatment services. And that's how I met Paul Stevens. And so we coordinated for them to offer the classes and actually transport male and female residents to Arkansas Baptist College, and they went and they attended classes in entrepreneurship, like educational programs through Undergrace at the college. And so I eventually left Arkansas Community Corrections and went to work for another place. And about that same time, Paul approached me about being on the board for Undergrace Ministries. And so I joined the board because I really believed in what they were doing and I saw the effectiveness of the way the services were offered. And so when I joined the board, I was able to have input into, all the things that were going on. And while I was at the other organization where I was working, I was working on a master's in social work. And my dad, yeah, it was my dad then. So my dad passed and he was my mom's caregiver. So long story short, I had to quit working
Yeah.
to come and take care of my mom.
Hmm.
And so while I was working on that master's degree, I had to of course do a intern. And so at that time I came back to or I left I stepped off the board and then I joined Exodus as a intern. And while interning, I completed my master's in social work. And of course, that led to becoming an employee. And I took the position of operations director. And so, as the operations director, I worked hand in hand with Paul. We were excelling at offering justice involved services with volunteers, but it was a movement happening in the state with the peer recovery services. And there wasn't really another organization that was pretty much doing the things that peers did except for Exodus. And
Mhm.
so it was just a natural transition to start being a peer service provider. And from there, we've went from classes inside juvenile justice facilities
Mhm.
or correctional facilities to we have classes inside the correctional facilities. We are partnering with community providers. So it's just turned into this whole big old thing that's sometimes really unexplainable. But
Yeah,
yeah.
for sure. Like you started in like it's incredible. I didn't know that you even started here as an intern. So
Mhm.
I don't think there's. I already knew that there wasn't anybody better, prepared to be an executive director of Exodus Life other than
Mhm.
you. But like you, like that just solidified it for me. Where it's like
Mhm.
you started in at the level where you're supervising a lot of interns that are coming into Exodus now.
Mhm.
But it's not like you can't say, "Well, I've never been there, but let me tell you how to do it." You've been
I've
there,
been
and,
there.
yeah,
Exactly.
and you've seen this organization change and grow over
Totally
time.
evolved.
Yeah,
And
for
yeah.
sure. I remember even when I first met you at the North Little Rock Chamber and
Mhm.
came on board to start helping with some of the marketing. You guys were doing classes from the prisons, bringing them to the facility
Yes.
here.
When we transitioned from offering the classes on the college campus, is because they secured this building, and
Hmm.
so they actually transported the males from the Little Rock unit to this facility. And so we did that until COVID happened. And when 2020 happened, that's when we called that our pivot.
Yeah,
So that's when we really shifted gears and had to figure out how can we still get the services to individuals if they can't come to us. So
right.
we literally created a way to give the services, through video conferencing, having Zoom meetings
Hmm.
and connecting with other service providers and just trying to help people that were just trying to make sure we kept people engaged as much as possible during that time. And so and
Right.
that really opened up the doors for us to build all these relationships that we have now.
Yeah, for sure.
Mhm.
And I know it used to be when I first came in or met, you and Exodus and Paul and all that stuff. Like things were, kind of more focused on the reentry side for people that were
Right.
in prison coming out, and then that's changed over time. But I mean,
Mhm.
oh, I know this is a nonprofit, but like it's kind of the same principle of like whenever a business, starts off, you start selling one product or service to a certain people, right?
Mhm.
But then you see that there's actually a greater need for something else that's kind of a crossover of what you're already doing. And so you focus your time there instead. You find out who
Right.
your real audience is. And it kind of
Mhm.
seems like Exodus has gone through that. Not to say that, substance abuse recovery is a lucrative business or anything
Mhm.
in Arkansas, but there's absolutely a great need in order for, that to be the focus of this
Right.
organization.
Well, what we kept encountering is like one of our missions is to address barriers. And so the
Yeah.
more that we work with individuals, we see where this one particular thing becomes another issue.
Hmm.
So we try to go solve a problem.
Right.
And when we try to solve a problem, it literally makes us have to create a whole nother program almost.
Yeah.
And so we kind of have this model that we are building towards called a one-stop shop. And I call it, we want to touch a person through whatever door they're coming in. So if a person is just walking up off the street, we want to be able to serve them. If they're currently incarcerated, we want to
Hmm.
be able to serve them. If they're getting ready to leave incarceration, we want to serve them. If they're right on that point where we're trying to help them stay out of systems, we'll help them. So we constantly shift to make sure we can assist however need be, which keeps helping us expand.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And I know this Exodus has been around for a while. When I was trying to look up a logo to put up on the screen over here, like I saw so many different iterations, the
Yes.
Out for Life and the Exodus Project, and
Project.
yeah, and there's just so many that are still on the internet right now. But I was like,
Yeah.
man, this really has sort of kind of hit me. It was like so many different phases that this organization has gone through.
It has.
But also, like you said at the time, like there was nobody really doing peer support recovery like Exodus was, and
Mhm.
it seems like thanks to this podcast and Exodus.Life itself, and like getting tied into that whole recovery organization sort of community that's
Mhm.
built in Arkansas. Like I've had the opportunity to work with quite a few different organizations around the state and some of the big speakers that
Mhm.
some of the main faces. But it seems like almost every one of them has come through Exodus at one point originally.
Mhm.
Like they were originally just an intern, or they were a peer support specialist for
Or they were a
Exodus,
participant in
or
the
they were a
program.
participant in the program. Exactly right. And it's
Yes.
it's like, wow, it's like you guys, you're kind of the unsung hero
Mhm.
of peer support recoveries, especially in Arkansas. It's like
Mhm.
nobody that is the big players in peer support recovery now in the state would be where they are now if they had not had Exodus.Life to give them the opportunity
Exactly.
or the counseling that they needed.
Mhm. And we're um the only way I can explain that is we're committed to helping people grow.
Yeah.
And whatever that looks like, I tell people all the time, the same work and effort that we put into trying to help an individual that's receiving services from us is given to our staff
Yeah.
and to anyone that comes in contact with us. And so that carries. And then when you get what you need from us, we just all we ask is pay it forward. And
Hmm.
that's what you see happening.
Oh,
Like,
for sure.
we had a information the other day where we were recruiting and informing people that there are these peer recovery specialist jobs that are available, or careers actually that's available in the southeast part of the state. And it's like you said, everyone who spoke, many of the people that were coming to get the information, they're already connected to us
Hmm.
some form of fashion. And that's it doesn't always work as a great marketing tool for us, but I that's kind of the way I like it, is to let me be in the background and do what I need to do, get the
Hmm.
work done, and let the work speak for itself.
Sure.
And so that I think that's one of the ways we've been effective too, is we don't have to take credit for it. We'll just let the others
Yeah.
be, the fruits of our labor, kind of.
No, yeah, for sure. And that really speaks to your character as well.
Mhm.
And maybe you can't put a pin in it, but I would like to know, like, so you started off in the community corrections and working with them.
Mhm.
Why social work in the first place? Why do you have such a passion to help people?
I really just think it's my DNA.
Yeah.
Like, my parents were, you know, constant community givers and helpers, and I have family members that have struggled with addiction and went
Hmm.
through the recovery process, but it's really just kind of my nature.
Yeah.
People used to say, if what do you like to do more than anything? And I would say, just help people.
Hmm.
And folks like, that's not healthy. That's not a good, but I'm like, you asked. I don't know what else to say, because that's what I do. You can label it enabling, codependent, whatever you want to,
Right.
but that's what I feel like I'm here to do, is to serve and help people grow.
Right.
And that's what we do.
Yeah. That's
Yeah.
that's awesome. How do your kids feel about it? What you do?
Well, I think they like it. My daughter's also a social worker too.
Okay.
She
Okay.
and my oldest girl, like she's a techie,
Hmm.
but she's a helpful techie.
Hmm.
So it's just our nature.
Yeah.
It's just who we I don't know. And I think I'm one of the people that have been fortunate enough to be able to get paid to
Hmm.
operate in a calling.
Yeah.
And most people don't get that opportunity, but
Right.
that's what it
Few and
is.
far between, rare opportunity to do so.
Yeah.
I've got this theory that like a lot of people who are so invested like you are into, helping people, just doing good, what I mean, being a
Mhm.
do-gooder, is that you were a recipient of that one time. You know what I mean? Like
Mhm.
I have strong opinions about like what happens to like uh community, like welfare programs and WIC and stuff like
Mhm.
that. Because when I was a kid, I wouldn't have survived if it wasn't for those
Right.
programs. You know what I mean? I was a very poor kid in rural Arkansas.
And I think sometimes that's one of the reasons why it's probably taking this long for me to do this because I'm not a fan of the spotlight.
Sure, I know that.
Because what happens when the spotlight is put on something, it's subjected to this false narrative or
Mhm.
this judgment. And I'm kind of like you. We can hear people say all day long all the negative things about those type of programs and services and benefits, or you
Right.
can call it welfare, whatever you want to. But there are so many people who those services have made a way for
Mhm.
them to be productive
Right.
people, for them
Yeah.
to be able to sustain their families. And
Yeah.
I just choose to believe that the good stories outweigh the negative.
Absolutely.
So
And that's why we do things like this. The internet
yeah.
inherently bad place. If you ever check the comments anywhere,
Yes.
you're like, "Oh, wow, I need to just stay off the internet."
Yeah.
But without these little beacons of light, where, people like sharing your story here,
Mhm.
like that's going to be inspiring for somebody. You never know what's going to happen out of that. If you had never given or heard about Exodus.Life or had that opportunity to join,
Right.
what would have happened then? What would
Mhm.
have not happened actually with you not being in this
Right.
position? You know what I mean?
And one of the things that is really unique about Exodus, even when I talk about how I came here,
Hmm.
um, I mean, Paul Stevens, I love him to death. But
Yeah.
when I first met him, I was like, what is this man talking about? He literally walked inside of a prison and he
Yeah.
was like, let me tell you what I want to do. I want to take these
Hmm.
ladies and I want to put them in a bus and I want to transport them 45 minutes away to a college in the center of Little Rock, Arkansas, and sit them beside students and teach them the same thing
Yeah.
every day.
Yeah.
And we was like, well, why do you think that's possible?
Hmm. Yeah.
Because I just need you to say I can do it.
Right.
And somebody said, yes, he can do it. And he did it. And it was
Yeah.
amazing. Like the program probably literally had like a 3 or 4% recidivism rate at the time.
Right.
It was amazing.
Right.
And so you had to see it to believe it. And so I saw it and I knew it could be done. So I'm like, yeah,
Yeah.
I'm in. And so we get to do some what seems real far fetched to some
Mhm.
people, but it's what it takes to help people have a chance to get better.
Trailblazing, and like you're
Yeah.
setting, you're creating the programs other people are going to model after you because they're like,
Mhm.
oh, that worked, and they did
Yeah.
it, so let's go ahead and try it. But yeah, being first and you get all crazy, like that's just
Yeah.
that's part of the
That's
territory, right?
part of the territory.
If you're the
So
first one to walk out there. Um, yeah, and so like what you're doing really is really important, especially right now in I know like there's the office here in Little Rock that's been around for a while, but
Mhm.
Jefferson County,
Correct.
Pine Bluff, which kind of has its own reputation for it with across the state. So
Mhm.
I want to backtrack on this a little bit, but talking about you, I told you a little bit last year about this other podcast I was doing,
Yes.
podcast series.
And I watched the episode the other
Oh,
day.
good. I'm glad you have.
Yes.
Yes. So the next two will come out over the next couple of days, and
Okay.
then that's all my whole 5-part series on that. But in doing that, like for over a year, I've been doing research on Pine Bluff and like the city. What was it like for that time of Reconstruction? You know what I mean? And like
Mhm.
how it's so strange that in 1893, the World's Fair that was happening in Chicago, the state of Arkansas paid for Jefferson County to have their immigration board put together this booklet that was trying to sell people on coming to Arkansas and buying property in Pine Bluff.
Mhm.
And they traveled to Chicago, you know what I mean? Either by train or by wagon or however they got there at the time to try to sell people in Chicago from all over the world that were coming there of
Mhm.
why you should come to Pine Bluff and that's such a direct sort of contradiction to what we hear today about
Today.
Pine Bluff, which is
Mhm.
it's got the nickname Crime Bluff, right? So it has such a high crime rate. There is a huge amount of drug problem, but also like the development of the city itself
Right.
has just fallen apart because well, after the Reconstruction era,
Manufacturing, yeah,
there was
and it's
manufacturing, there was the flooding, there was World War II where they moved in the munitions and everything. And so like it's just been degraded. You can see the homes that were once that were built there really, really nice, but now the grass is just up to the windows and like the roofs are caving in when you drive through there. There are some things that are moving in and some people are trying to buy and develop, but it seems like it's sort of an uphill battle, but there's such a need for what you're doing, which I'm
Mhm.
sure was also being called crazy. Oh, you want to move in an organization that comes in and addresses the drug problem that we have here in Pine Bluff?
Mhm.
Good luck. But I mean, you guys are doing it. And the ribbon cutting that you had for the new facility that you just
Mhm.
opened, the amount of people that showed up there, and I'll throw some clips in here of like some of those interviews that we got. But
Mm.
uh, it's amazing to see how many people came out to support that.
Yeah. And part of that is because there is still life in Pine Bluff.
Hmm.
You just have to, like you said, believe in it. And second of all, it shows the testament of how people feel about us and what we do,
Hmm.
and understand that if it can be done, we can be part of the solution.
Right.
And Jefferson County is Pine Bluff is my home. I was born and raised there. So I tell people all the time, even in my lifetime, I have seen this major shift. When I was in the 5th grade, I had to do a report, and I will never forget. I was able to say that Pine Bluff was the third largest city in the state,
Hmm. Yeah.
and we were one of the wealthiest
Yeah.
counties in the state.
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't know that, and a lot of that is still there, but it's not discussed because, we get to get the moniker, like you said, of Crime Bluff, which
Right.
I absolutely
I know that you don't like that.
hate,
Yeah.
because I
Yeah.
just I think when the things happen in Pine Bluff,
Hmm.
they happen to many times people that are engaged in that lifestyle. Is
Yeah.
I'm not gonna say that Pine Bluff is not safe for my grandmother, because that's not true.
Right.
It is.
Yeah.
It's just things that happen everywhere happen there, but we get a
Right.
spotlight oftentimes. And it's still a great place. Like,
Mm.
when you come and you actually get to meet the people that are there and find out, the passion that still is in that city, it can be again,
Mhm.
and it will be. Like
Yeah.
you said, it will be. It just, we have to work one step at a time.
Well, it's a lot like the negativity we're talking about on the internet. Like
Mhm.
it's so much easier for a human being to be cynical and to degrade something than
Right.
it is to actually say, "What can I do? How can I help?" And then put boots on the
Exactly.
ground. Yeah.
Exactly. And I don't even have a comment for that, because that's what it is. It's social media. It's liquid courage to some people. It just emboldens them to do things that they know is not necessary, and it's not productive. But hey,
Sure. Yeah.
that's part of it.
And like I know that you guys work with the juvenile courts, especially to go in and have
Mhm.
classes for some of the juveniles. I've been able to have the opportunity to go in, record Crystal while she was holding
Yes.
class in there. Um, and it's great to have that relationship. I know, like recently in the news about Jefferson County, the courts aren't always aligned with
Mhm.
some of the social programs that are happening there.
Right.
And I know just yesterday I was reading it. There was a headline talking about how the city of Pine Bluff was bringing Jefferson County to court because Pine Bluff didn't think that they should have to pay for inmates to be housed in the Jefferson County
And I
facility.
I saw that, and I saw how long that has been going
Yeah,
on, and the county won. So that means that the sheriff's department probably will get some of the funding that it needs to
yeah,
make it do what it needs to do.
right.
That's the best way to put it. And when you were talking a little while ago about the things in Pine Bluff and what's getting highlighted, like, I think there should be some kind of big electronic board somewhere that all the news stations have to post every day to say that, I forgot now, but we're probably rolling on 400 days without a juvenile
Yes,
homicide
yeah, that is
in the
huge.
city.
Hmm.
So, but nobody talks about that
Right.
every day. This great program has come in and start doing these things to help curb the violence, and it's working. And so, let's scream that just as much as we scream these other things. And like, because it'll always be something to give us some negative attention, but it's always 10 times more things that are positive things going on.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I saw one of our uh, a Jefferson County young man. I saw it there, perfect score on his ACTs. You know, so it's all kind of things that we can, you know, praise our community for, but we just have to learn how to speak louder than the naysayers. That's all I say. And I
Yeah.
do that by action. I don't talk. I mean, you seen how long I'll just
Yeah.
show you better than I can tell you. And that's the only way I know how to respond.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
yeah.
So there's still 4 RCOs in the state, right? Or is there more now?
There are 4, and we recently created an organization. It's the Arkansas Association for Recovery Community Organizations.
Okay.
And so, what the 4 original RCOs have been tasked to do is to develop and bring on more recovery community organizations.
Okay.
And so, that is one of our tasks moving forward.
Yeah.
And so, we have. Heard in Texarkana, they recently opened a recovery community organization. And so what we're doing is making sure that, you know, they meet the standards and qualifications, and pretty soon they'll have the designation as a Arkansas approved recovery community organization.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
And so your area in RCO is Jefferson, kind of that
Yes,
area, right?
Jefferson, the southeast region. And
Right.
so right now Hurd is actually under us. So that's Miller
Oh
County.
wow.
So
So
we're
I have 2.
anywhere in between there down, you know,
It's a
we're
big area.
yeah, it's a very large area. And so we can't always do like face to face, one-on-one
uh,
recovery services, but if we get a call from somebody in Monticello or Warren and they need some assistance, we can direct them, either help them directly or direct them to a peer that's in their area that can help them get what they need done.
oh wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
And
Yeah.
so it has to be, you know, we try to make sure we stay well, the peer recovery
Hmm.
community stay well connected. So literally assistance, no matter how far that person is away from the you, is readily available.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, that's amazing. Yeah, that's a big area to cover. I'm sure there's lots of, rural locations in between. I know
Right.
not every, town or city has an available sort of rehab or a,
No.
recovery center where they can go to and get the help that they need to get off of substance abuse once they make that
Right.
step to be ready, you know what I mean? They made that decision for themselves.
And that's kind of where the peer recovery specialists come in. That's why they're so helpful, because everybody cannot go to a residential bed.
Hmm.
But I can probably call you every day until I get stable enough to get in that bed.
Yeah.
Or I get my family squared away so that I can leave my children and know that they're going to be safe while I'm trying to get better. So, you know, the peer recovery specialist, that's where they thrive, is to be that, you know, catalyst to
Hmm.
help the person.
Which
Yeah.
makes a world of difference for the person that's going through recovery, because like that's an important time. Once
Yes.
you've made that decision, I
Mhm.
imagine. I've never been in that position myself, but I
Mhm.
imagine like you make that decision, and the things that led to you doing drugs anyway were
Mhm.
probably, trying to escape the world a little bit, you know what I mean? So how do you stay on track until you can get into a bed at a facility? You've got to have somebody that's been through it before and be
Right.
like, "Hey, this is worth it." And I'll tell you why.
And the peer recovery specialists, they are a real life tangible motivator.
Sure.
You know, because if this person is getting paid
Hmm.
to do these things that they're doing, and they're able to tell that person that's still struggling, hey, you can change. When I was in that situation, or that one time that happened to me, this is what I had to do, so maybe you can consider that. Or if when this happened to me, if I had someone that does what I do, it would have helped me make it a little longer. You know,
Right.
those kind of things. So, and it's we just want people to change for the better. I think sometimes people get caught up in how much a person's changing. But if they can just improve a little bit, and a little bit more, and a little bit more, then they'll get there. Peers are able to help that person and the people around them, their family, see, hey, this is good. yes, they may have messed up and, made a bad decision today, but they didn't make those other 3 mistakes that they normally
Hmm.
make every day. They didn't
Right.
make those other 3 choices.
Yeah.
So let's give them credit for, taking this step. And it's a game changer. That's all I can keep saying. It's a game changer. I'm bought in. I'm not a person in with lived experience
Hmm.
either, but I just always say I'm probably one of the biggest allies a peer can have
Yeah,
because I see the value in the work.
for sure. I think I talk about this probably every episode of this podcast, but you know, I don't have that lived experience either,
Mm,
but I think that everybody can relate. Even if you don't have a connection to somebody that has had substance abuse issues
mhm,
or going through recovery of some sort of addiction, even if however you did that, however you avoided that, because everybody has
mhm,
family members or friends or neighbors, what
mhm,
so they know someone. But like even if you avoided all of that, I think every human being can relate to the issue of having something from your past that sort of sits like the monkey on your back, right? So
mhm.
the devil on your shoulder is whispering to you, telling you you'll never get over this and you're not good enough because of that, and trying to make a decision every single day to say, no, I'm better than that and I'm going to do better.
Right.
Right.
Mhm.
Strive for that.
Yeah.
Um, with all the changes that you've seen in Exodus, I know that you've got more on the table, and I know you actively are planning more things in the future of where you're
Mhm.
growing. I mean, you just added on Texarkana
Mhm.
with that program. What else is in the future? Do you see for Exodus?
Well, we are anticipating our accreditation results. We just went through a council on accreditation, site visits, and all those type of things.
Hmm.
So hopefully by the summer, we will have that designation, which will also expand our clinical services. Right now, we have one therapist on staff. Once we are, positioned to make sure we're creating ways to sustain this.
Yeah.
Like we have been fortunate enough that we have great funders, donors, sponsors, grants, all those type of things, but we want to be able to be self-sustainable. And
Right.
so we're trying to move toward that. It helps us think outside the box of ways of things to incorporate. One of the biggest things that we are trying to hone in for Exodus is our entrepreneurial leg. Most people don't even know that about us, but we have uh, the Ice House entrepreneurship program. And this program is not your normal, oh, go get your 501c3, I mean your
Hmm.
LLC or, business license or things like that. It is a intense program to teach you the entrepreneurial mindset.
Hmm.
And so we're changing people's beliefs so they can understand that their natural God given talents or their own creativities or just whatever skills they have can be what sustains them in life. That can be,
Right.
you can be your own boss per se and make your own way if you just figure out where is there a problem and how can I solve it. And that's it. That's it. You don't have to go start a $1 million car wash company or, whatever it is.
Yeah.
But whatever skills you're good at, and if you can find a skill that's going to solve a problem for somebody, you'll have a livelihood. And that's basically what we're trying to expand that. And I think especially in Jefferson County, at one point, there was this big push because it was basically just this influx of what our system would consider illegal businesses.
Hmm.
People basically running restaurants out their kitchen or young ladies and folks and barbers, cutting and styling hair at home and all these type of things. And I'm like, but I just saw that as people trying to make a way for themselves. So if we can get a hold to those people and give them the true structure,
Yeah.
then they can have legitimate solutions to their
Of
income
course.
basically.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so it's the perfect area for that.
Yeah, for sure. definitely
Yeah.
attest to that. That's the same program I went through to
Mhm.
start my entrepreneurship, journey, and it really, taught me so much, or
Mhm.
more about the myths that are surrounded around entrepreneurialism, which I can do.
Right.
I can talk all day about that long, and everything I learned about that.
Me too.
And there are principles in there that like don't only they not only apply to starting a business or entrepreneurship itself, but just life.
Life.
Yeah,
That's it.
and then, like the education part. And there's a story. I don't know. Have you read the book that goes with it
How
about the
many
guy's story?
times? Yeah.
Okay,
Look at
okay. You know how the
Cleve really is my uncle. Look
okay,
at
okay.
no.
Or, how Cleve used to always have the newspaper on the truck seat, right?
Right.
Because he wanted to know as much about everything as he possibly could.
Mhm.
That way, he had a point that he had a conversation that he could talk to some people and relate to them, but also he saw opportunities where they were, and like
Exactly.
just continuously educating yourself on everything every single day so that you know as much as possible, not
Mm,
being complacent. Like it's huge, change your life. And I
right.
think people that are going through recovery, the more that they try to explore the world and know more about it, the more they'll find inspiration to stay sober and to seek other things, right?
Mhm.
It kind of seems like it goes in hand in hand.
It does, and it's the thing I like about the entrepreneurial mindset curriculum more than anything is the empowerment of it, because if it's like you said, if you read the book, Uncle Cleve, his entire family was just trained to work in the fields.
Hmm.
You all go out and you pick the cotton and you do that hard work. And he was like, I'm gonna be the ice house.
Yeah.
I'll create this ice house and I'll stay where it's
Hmm.
cool and I'll help everybody else get what they need done.
Right.
And it's that kind of thinking that we try to incorporate, because the one thing we do know about most of the people that we work with, whatever they usually got in trouble for is because they were so good at it.
Yeah.
And that sounds contradictory, but
Hmm.
we tell young ladies all the time, there's, they're professional, shoplifters, when they're in their addiction, you know, have you ever thought about the other side of merchandising?
Yeah.
You see what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Like
Yeah.
you have you ever thought about the other side
Hmm.
of what this business looks like?
Exactly right.
Yeah. And so it's probably just it's really just one of those tools that it helps us help people see their potential.
Hmm.
And it's like you said, it's not about just starting a business or making money, but when people can change the way they think about life or think about things, so many other doors
Right.
open. It's kind of like you said, we still hear it now. Like, if we start out and we tell people that we're in Jefferson County, why?
Yeah.
And me,
Mhm.
I'm offended off the front because I'm like, why not? I
Right.
tell people all the time, what's down there? I'm from
Yeah.
Pine Bluff. I'm like, and I know all these amazing people. And a lot of times what I find out, especially being here in Little Rock, and I remember when I first started working for Exodus, we would be at these places, where I say you have to go rub shoulders and hobnob with people, and folks would be talking, and people would just ease over to you. I'm from Pine Bluff.
Yeah.
My grandparents were from Pine
They
Bluff.
whisper.
Yeah, but people that
Yeah.
they wanted to, when
Yeah.
they saw somebody else proud to be from there, they
Uh,
wanted to let you know
sure.
that
Sure. Sure.
too. And so
Yeah.
I was like, that's good.
Yeah.
But and it happened so frequently that it was also a wake up call to me, like, there are some people in here and from here
Yeah.
that are worth fighting for.
Right.
So that's the biggest thing.
No, yeah, for sure. I do want to talk about, we talked about the importance of the work and what you guys are doing and then the scope and how you're doing it.
Okay.
But funding for the Exodus itself, I know it's gone through several different phases, and
Mhm.
there have been like fundraisers in the past, and I know we're looking at fundraising again for Exodus.
Yeah.
And then there's been fortunate to have quite a few grants come through.
Yes.
I know we're we're in a
It's a
place in our country right now where that's kind of a shaky
scary
subject
little,
to and scary
yeah.
thing to talk about. Yes, for
But
sure.
I'm trusting, so it's handled
Yeah.
whichever way it comes, it gets handled. But like I said, one of our biggest initiatives is um the accreditation,
Hmm.
standardizing what we do so that we can have some official backing
Right.
to our services. And when I came to Exodus, when I started here, Exodus was 100% donor
Hmm.
funded. All our monies came from private donors and sponsorships. And so I started writing, grants to help and expound on that. And so now we're back in the place where we're reaching we've reached a level where it is time to bring back in the donors and
Hmm.
get the commitments and sponsors and things like that. And that's probably like better than anybody, my weakest point, because so I try to surround myself and my board members and people that are stronger in that area, because like I said, I just like to show you what I can do,
Yeah.
and then wish some people would just be like, oh, that's amazing, here, let me keep paying for that. and,
Right.
and
Right.
so those kind of things. But we're constantly trying to find ways, and we're also trying to look at things like, even with the entrepreneurial wing, what are some other entities that can spin off that can help fund the organization.
Hmm.
We have things like, one of the things that we do at Exodus now is we don't spend a lot of money on marketing materials, especially like t-shirts and things like that. We bought the equipment
Right.
and we make it all in-house. And how we make it all in-house is, between our interns and some of our former participants, they come in and they make it, for us, so we don't have to, spend money on those type of things. And then just trying to find creative ways to bring those funds in. But we just, and we always walk, hold on to our faith that it's going to be taken care of, because like you said earlier this year, we were, I think everybody was kind of frightened about, oh, what if my funding go away
Right.
today?
Yeah.
And I was like, oh yeah, we gotta do something about that.
Yeah.
So look
No, for sure. Yeah.
yeah,
Always. Yeah.
but it continues to work itself out. Like
Yeah.
we don't fear anymore. When I first came to Exodus, it was four of us. We had four employees, and now we have 14, 12 or 14.
Hmm.
So, we just figure it out.
Yeah. I mean, I have every belief that it'll work out in
Yeah,
one
look
way or
at
another. But like you're sort of you're depositing into the the bank of good karma out there. You
yeah,
know what I mean?
look
Like it sort of comes back to you. And the very thing that you were talking about, where it's like you kind of want to be in the background and do the work, and you're doing amazing work, and just
Mhm,
hoping that people will appreciate it enough to where the funding comes in, the support comes in.
mhm,
But that's being involved with a lot of the recovery organizations across the state and getting to go to all these different conferences and the filming and do all these other things. I kind of get a personal view of like what everybody
mhm.
operates like. And so because these are paid positions for a lot of people, you kind of get a mixed bag. You know what I mean? You get
Yeah.
people who are wholeheartedly into it, and then some people they're like, "Well, I don't know if I could get another job if it wasn't for this one, because they do. This is one of the very few jobs that accepts
Yes.
felons as people."
Mhm,
And so, one thing I can definitely say, because there are a lot of really great people in the recovery world, but the one thing I can really say about Exodus Life is that every single person that works there is full heartedly into it.
into
Yeah, most of them are introverted, like you are, that do not like to be in front of the camera. They do not like to take credit. But like you get to see them, and like especially if you're lucky enough to see them work behind the scenes. I mean, like going in to
Mhm.
see Crystal work and talk to the kids there, or get to see Lawana meet with one of her clients here in the
Right.
office, or seeing Kim, doing some work behind the scenes, trying to trying to make everything work so that we're
Working
completely in the legal
that
review.
none of us will go to prison or
Right,
go back.
exactly right. Yeah, for sure. But it's like it's incredible to see that, and I can say, with every bit of confidence, that every single person that works for Exodus is full heartedly into it, and like you could trust them with your life.
Yes.
You know?
When we had the peer informational the other day, the myself, Lawana, and Kim, we've been here since day one.
Hmm.
Like everybody has been here. The only time we get staff turnover is usually when it's time to hire someone.
Yeah.
We very seldom have to terminate people. We have, but it's not the 6 years I've been here, two people, I think we've terminated. And some people may have left because a better opportunity, of course, like
Yeah.
Casey, a better opportunity
Sure.
came along. And that's usually how people transition out of these positions is a
They
promotion to
scale
something.
up. Yeah.
Yeah, they scale up and scale up greatly,
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
so it's and that's what I take heart in the most is like I said, I create the environment or I try to help create the environment that I know where if the staff is okay, then the people that they're taking care of are okay. And I don't like to have unrealistic demands on people that are supposed to be serving people
Hmm.
cuz it's counterproductive.
Right.
And so we emphasize self-care like it is mandatory. Each one of our staff meetings you have to report out on a self-care technique that
That's
you've
great.
done since the last staff meeting. And if you don't have one, we're going to help you figure one out before we leave the meeting that day
Yeah.
because people really do have to be in this profession, people really do have to be taught to take care of themselves.
Right.
Cuz when you it can be a great thing to be a servant leader or a servant
Hmm.
of this field, but it can also be a sickness.
Right.
And so we try to make sure we
Yeah.
don't let people cross that line.
To be a vessel that gives and gives and gives, you have to be refilled at some point.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, for
And
sure.
so that's just built into what we do.
Sure. Well, that's amazing and glad to
Yeah.
hear it. And Exodus, of course, or always doing great work. Can't say enough good things about it. And thank you for breaking out of your comfort zone to sit here in front of a
Well,
camera and talk
thank you.
about
It it wasn't
talk
as
about it
hard as I
yourself.
thought it was gonna
Yeah,
be. I
I
guess
told you
when I
it's a
like
natural
doing it,
conversation.
yeah.
Yeah,
So I appreciate it. And thank you
yeah.
for bearing with me is this 2 years you've been trying to get this
A
done?
little over a year, we've been going at it for a little while, but that's okay.
Yeah.
Because in the process, this podcast itself has been growing, and like we've been able to go out and interview a lot of people from across
To stay.
the
Yeah.
state, but also now we're going into Oklahoma City for this big national first time event that's going to be happening, in May, I think it is, Pathways to Innovation.
Okay.
And so they've got me set up in a hotel, and I'm going to set up my equipment and everything and do interviews
Perfect.
with people who are coming in who are recovery experts and mental, like wellness and stuff
Yeah.
like that. So, anyways, behavioral health is what's what
Okay.
the whole
Well, we
conference is
might need
about.
to check that out and see if we
Yeah,
need
for
to
sure.
be
I'll give you
there
the details about that. And so I know this episode is going to go out when Podcast Thon is happening. And so
Okay.
shout out, you may not know what that is, but shout out to Jeremy, who I met at Podcast Movements I believe I met him at the one in DC last
Hmm.
year. But so he's from France, and this is where that originated.
You say
Um,
from France?
yes.
Okay.
So it's an international thing. And
Hmm.
so Podcast Thon is where I think over 5,000 podcasts have signed up this year, probably more now, but like from across the world.
Hmm.
And so you agree to do an episode that highlights a nonprofit organization of your choice for a special
Oh
episode.
wow.
You
Well,
upload it
thank
to
you.
your feed, but also they'll upload it to the Podcast On channel, and so that everyone around the world gets to see it at the same time.
Okay.
And anyways, yeah, I definitely want to lead people to Exodus.Life. I know
Thank you
when
very
when you look
much.
at it from the worldview,
View.
you're like, okay, now let's hone in on the USA, now Arkansas, now down here in
Jefferson
Jefferson County.
County.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but the amount of work that you're doing is sort of it's spreading out. And I think as the peer recovery specialists, continue to grow and everything in that
Hmm.
whole arena, that those needs are being filled and everybody seems to be coming out of Exodus like this is core to preserving and making sure that it thrives so that the community itself can thrive in
Can
the
thrive
future.
as well.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, if you would like to donate to Exodus Life, please go to Exodus.Life. That is the website.
Hmm.
So, www.exodus.life. And there is a donation button there if you feel given that you want to help Exodus Life continue its mission and to help create even new programs that are going to be coming on in the future.
Yes.
Please go there. or support in however you wish to. All of the contact information is there too. There's a form to fill out if you would like to get in contact with Myra. And also, if you can give your email address out if you like.
That's fine.
Okay.
MWOOLFOLK at Exodus.Life. So that's M Woolfolk at Exodus.Life.
Awesome. Very cool.
Mhm.
Myra, is there anything else you want to say before we jump off this episode?
Mm, I really kind of want to ask you some questions,
Okay, go
but
ahead and ask me some questions.
oh, tell me what you think um, has been the best thing about Exodus since you've been partnering with us.
The best thing about Exodus, like I said, there's we've covered a few of these things, and so one of them is that the staff, everyone on the staff is great,
Mm,
absolutely love it. Um, the other part is that, of course, well, I'll say three. So there's that. There's the part where everybody that's sort of in, like the Jimmy McGills and Copeland, who's now with
Casey.
DHS, Casey, yeah. And so like there would not be Brittany. She changed her last name since she got married now,
Hmm.
but like
Goodman. Yeah.
yeah, well, Brittany Goodman, yes, of course, but Brittany, who has the nonprofit organization she was going in with
Oh,
Chuck. Now that she's changed her name, I forgot her last name
yeah.
because she's gotten married as well. I know too many Britneys are getting married in this. It's that time of year. Anyways, there would not be those key figures in recovery if it wasn't for Exodus.Life and for them having gone
Hmm.
through the program or been an intern or working for it at one time. Um, I would say, the third thing is that when I was sitting in there, when we were going through the evaluation, right, for accreditation,
Hmm.
with the company that came up from Florida, and like they were talking to us board members about our position and what we thought that like the responsibility of Exodus was and what our responsibility was to Exodus, and they you know asked what do you feel like your role is, or like could you be more involved, and it's like I told them, I was like, well, as board, like just typically for any nonprofit organization,
Hmm.
like you're not I'm on several different boards, and I've
Hmm.
seen varying degrees of that. Like, so for the most part, board members don't get really involved in the organization. They show up to those quarterly meetings. They have something to say about or input to say, okay, well, you guys should make this decision. This is what you should do, or they vote on something, right? But
Hmm.
then you won't see them for any events. You won't see them for in person, on foot, in the building. But Exodus is very, very different in
Hmm.
that the board members want to help so much and they're not getting paid.
Right.
Like there is no monetary value whatsoever, but just believing in the mission and what that work is that Exodus is doing and getting to
Hmm.
see that firsthand, it keeps the board members walking in the building and wanting to witness that over and over and
Over
over
and
and
over
over
again.
again. I think it's encouraging to us and it makes us, we believe in the work so much that we want to get as involved as we possibly can.
Hmm.
Um, that's different.
Yeah.
That doesn't exist in most organizations,
Well, thank you.
even in like the American Heart Association or any of the the boards I've had a opportunity to go see or be a
Hmm.
part of. It's frustrating sometimes on those boards because you're like, God, you
Yeah.
guys, you have these ties. Why don't you just use them? Why don't you just bring these resources in? But like with Exodus, it's just like, what more can I do? And if I don't know how to do it, or if I don't have that connection, I'm going to go out
And
there
find
and
it.
find it and
Hmm.
bring it in. So I think that's the most special thing about Exodus is that it's such a vortex, I guess you would say,
Yeah.
in the recovery world that it does so much good and like it's so real, authentic, and genuine that it brings in like the best of people and they want to continue growing that and spread it
Hmm.
out more.
And a lot of our participants, that I don't necessarily think they keep coming back because they need services.
Hmm.
They keep coming back because of the connection and the camaraderie. Like it people always say this is the wrong thing to say in a professional setting, but it is literally like a family.
Yeah.
And people are usually not turned away. So thank you on that note, because that really is one of our, how do you measure that
Hmm.
to tell somebody, hey, will you, do you want to support us because of this? It's too hard to explain that, but that's one of our outcome measures is to keep people connected.
Yeah.
We we were trying to explain how we discharge people from our services during the accreditation, and we was like, well, we got these forms, but we don't never really fill them out on anybody because
Right.
Lawan and I've been here 5 years, and there are still people that reach out to us on a regular basis that were in that first round of
Wow.
people that we ever connected with. And so, they just keep showing up and we just keep on doing what we do.
Thank you again to Myra for taking the time to sit down and to talk and to answer some of the questions that were on my mind, I know, and probably on the minds of lots of people when they're starting to consider, what happens inside of recovery when, like, what are these organizations like? What do they run like on the inside? What are some of the things that they face as a whole and how can they help? So if you feel led to help, please do. Please help Exodus in any way that you possibly can, because the support that you give them not only allows them to continue the work that they're doing now, but also it helps them to do even more in the future. So you can head over to www.exodus.life to go ahead and donate and help them. Give it context if you have any other resources that you would love to provide the organization itself. If you are listening to this on a podcast, you can go over to YouTube and please subscribe to our channel. Same thing goes for if you're on YouTube, you can go to any of your favorite podcast platforms and subscribe and review us, please. It really helps us. It's free. It's a great way to support us. And the more you do that, the more engagement we get, the more likely we are to be recommended by the algorithm to new people who might be interested in learning about recovery. And that's what this podcast is all about. I appreciate you for listening. Thank you so much. And I will see you in the next episode.